Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and in this one we are testing the GeForce RTX 4070 Ti Super in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and the game has officially released, and we are using the Zotac AMP Hollow model of the card. And here are the specs of the GPU. We have the latest NVIDIA driver 566.36, which is the game ready driver for Indiana Jones, and we have 16 gigabytes of GDDR6X from Micron, and resizable bar is enabled inside BIOS. Over here in Task Manager, we have the Intel Core i7-13700K CPU as always. For memory, we have 64 gigabytes of DDR5 CL36 6000 MHz. And for MSI Afterburner, no overclocks are applied. Everything is set to stock settings. So let's get inside the game and check out the frame rates. We are here inside the menu, guys. We're starting it off at 1080p resolution. Obviously, this GPU is not meant for 1080p gaming, but we're gonna test it anyway. Motion blur, CA, and film grain are turned off, and we are using the supreme graphics quality settings, which is basically maxed out, and we don't need to adjust the texture size for this GPU because we have 16 gigs, so won't really be a problem. And we have full path tracing option available now in the game since the game has officially released now, and we are using DLAA, and I won't be using TAA. The game has both TAA and DLSS upscaling support. Unfortunately, no FSR or XeSS as of now. They will add it in the future, as I've seen. So I'm in the very starting area of the game where it starts in the jungle. As you can see, we are getting 111 FPS, 110. But look at that frame time graph. And this only happens with the latest NVIDIA driver. And that is the 566.36. It wasn't really happening. Like, I don't see a thick frame time graph with the 566.14, and I only noticed this problem happening with this particular GPU, and also for my friends 4080, he's having the same problem. This thick frame time graph is like constantly stuttering. Like, it's such a thick graph, like that high frame time. You won't really see any difference, but the stutters are actually there present. And the biggest complaint I have with this game is this shadows, this flickering shadows. But look at the GPU usage, which is obviously not maxed out at 1080p resolution. So we are pretty much CPU bound in this case. Let me go ahead and turn on frame generation quickly. So I'm gonna head down and turn on DLSS frame generation. And this should solve that thick frame time graph. As you can see, the frame time graph is now all totally flat right now. I don't think the game has an option for reflex, NVIDIA reflex. I probably don't think it has. I couldn't find one. But yeah, with frame generation, as you can see, we're getting like way over 170 FPS. And the GPU usage has kind of gone up now to 96-95%. Still not maxed out. And VRAM, as you can see, even at 1080p resolution, we are using over 12 gigs. It's the texture size. I mean, the textures in this game, they don't look that great even on supreme settings. There are many other games and they look far better. In those games, textures look far better, and they use way less VRAM also at the same time. So let's head down quickly and turn on full path tracing. I'm going to set this to medium at first, which only turns on RT sun shadows, and reflections are indirect lighting. We will turn them on afterwards. So I'm going to turn off frame generation again. Where is it? So we're going to stick with the DLAA, which is native 1080p, and we are using RT at low, I think. That was it. No, medium, or path tracing at medium, and everything else is pretty much maxed out. Now look at that. Look at that FPS drop. From a way over 100, it dropped to 60 now. So with the 4070 Ti Super with ray traced path tracing with sun shadows only, not fully path traced, we are getting 60, and it is even dropping to 50s. Let's continue ahead a bit. And let me tell you, with these sun shadows turned on, let me skip the cutscene quickly, and I will have to refresh the counter. And as you can see, 60 FPS we are getting, and all that shadow flickering is completely gone now. As you can see, that was a major issue with this game. Many people were complaining about, and even I did, obviously. The shadows, they were so flickery and always popping in and out of the screen. And obviously the game still has LOD issues, but I think the sun shadows or path traced or ray traced sun shadows, they fix that issue totally in this game when you turn it on. But the sacrifice in performance is massive. Like, look at the VRAM usage, it's now close to 15 even. But yeah, I think at 1440p, it's gonna be a miserable experience, I'm guessing, without any DLSS and frame generation, and that is the target resolution for this GPU. And I wonder what will happen at 4K. Honestly, can't wait to try that as well. And by the way, guys, I'm testing this game on Steam, not Game Pass. But in the city area, like in the Vatican City area, you get way more FPS. In any city area, I think it will be the same. You will get higher FPS than in the jungle because it's full of vegetation, as you can see right now. And yeah, let me tell you, all the shadow pop-ins are completely gone, except a few here and there, which has LOD issues, like this tree over here, which has a low level of detail. And I really hope they fix this tree. Or there are many other trees and objects which you will find throughout this game have less LOD on them. And the shadow on the water looks kind of noisy as well. Okay, I'm gonna quickly now switch this to, like, let's see, we're gonna try DLSS frame generation. I won't try quality DLSS at 1080p because it already looks bad at 1080p. I'm just gonna try DLSS frame generation. So we are getting like 100 plus FPS with frame generation turned on, but the input delay of frame generation, yeah, I can really notice it when it drops like to 90s, because this is an FPS game. It's slightly noticeable at times, but when above 100, it's very negligible. I think I can play like this, but come on, please don't play this at 1080p. At least try to play at 1440p with this GPU because it's pretty expensive. And the VRAM has slightly come up because of frame generation. Now it's above 15 gigs as well. And we are getting 105 FPS. And the image looks quite good as well. Frame generation implementation is quite good in this game. It isn't that bad. So up next, guys, I'm gonna try this with let's see, which is the next path tracing preset. Okay, high path tracing preset. We have now RT reflections and RT shadows both turned on. Indirect illumination is turned off still. Frame generation, I'm gonna turn it off. So native DLAA. And the rest of the settings are pretty much maxed out at this point. And look at the drop. We lost like, how much? 10 FPS there. It was getting like 60. Now we're getting like 52, 51. And GPU usage is pretty much maxed out now. And this game doesn't eat up that much of RAM and also CPU. It's pretty light on the CPU, even at 1080p resolution, as you can see. And right now it's still playable. I won't lie. 50 FPS is still a playable experience for a game like this. And for reflections, we are using RT reflections. And I don't know, I can't see any reflections here. Let me quickly turn it off and see what happens with the image or the water, if there are any differences. So RT reflections, yeah, I don't see any difference. Let's turn it back on real quick. It's probably because we are in the jungle area, right? So we won't really see any reflections here, of course. So I think we will have to head into the city area, which I have a save game for, and I'm gonna quickly load that now. Yeah, we are trying to find some reflections, guys. Look at the GPU usage dropping in now. Oh, look at those LOD on the tree. I told you. Trees mostly you will find, like, it's supreme settings, and this is still happening. Come on, please fix this. This is not acceptable for supreme settings. So I played a bit of the game from the beginning just to show you all these reflections. I was trying to find some glass panels on the city, but I couldn't, so I had to replay. I remember that there were some in this area. So as you can see over here, look at those reflections, RT reflections. So I'm gonna turn off RT reflections quickly again and show you the night and day difference between them. Where is it? There it is. Look at that. It's completely different, like night and day difference. in this area where there's a lot of glasses and glass panels. You will see the reflections are gonna be missing. So I'm gonna turn it back on now. And yeah, look at that now. That's a big difference
Well, this wasn't
when
what
you
I
look at the
expected
glass
when he flew
panels.
down from New York.
Beautiful,
Police
right?
don't usually make appointments.
Not just
And
that,
FPS in this area is
give
very
up
high,
on
as you can
the idea.
see. And I'm not even using frame generation, if I am not wrong. Let me quickly have a look. I forgot. Yeah, we're not using any FG whatsoever, guys. And finally, I'm gonna also try this with path tracing set to, where is it? I keep on losing this option. The path tracing, I'm gonna set it to full. Ray tracing is basically everything is maxed out now. This turns on indirect illumination as well. We are on DLAA. Let's see. As you can see, obviously in this area indoors, we're getting more FPS. I'll go and load the jungle back in and show you what happens. The lighting, this makes the lighting even more better with direct illumination. So over here in the interior, we're getting like 80 FPS. So this is quite playable right now, but let's load in the jungle save. So here we go, guys. Again at the jungle area, and wow, this looks very beautiful with the direct illumination. I'm gonna turn off direct illumination and have a look at the difference. Maybe if I can spot any. Okay, let's turn it off. We're getting like 46 FPS, right? Let's turn that off. And where it is? There it is. You can literally notice the difference at the background only from the menu. Look at that. That's a huge difference in terms of FPS. There's better lighting bouncing off the vegetation, the plants and trees when you have indirect illumination turned on. So I'm going to turn it back on. And where is it? I keep on losing this. Yeah, there is just more lighting in the shadows. Like, it looks way more natural right now. And FPS, we are dropping to like 30s now. I mean, we are in the jungle. Obviously, this is way more demanding than the interiors where we were before. And GPU utilization is maxed out. VRAM is not maxed yet, but 15 gigs. That's quite high. But keep in mind, we are just at 1080p resolution still. Now I'm going to quickly turn on DLSS frame generation on top of this, and it's not going to be a nice experience, unfortunately, because we are not getting 60 FPS without it. So the input lag is probably going to kill it for us. Yeah, it is very noticeable. You cannot really play with FG turned on, unfortunately. And VRAM is also now above 15.4 gigs. And yeah, it looks quite good though with FG. But with this input delay, it is quite noticeable. And that is so noisy. The trees over there. Maybe because it's because of 1080p resolution. But either way, we are getting 69 FPS average. That's quite nice. Unfortunately, it dropped to 68 there. But yeah, don't play it like this with this input delay. It's unbearable. So here we go, guys, at 1440p resolution, the target resolution for the 4070 Ti Super. And we're going to use the maximum graphics settings, which is the supreme quality settings, as you can see. And we have ray tracing or full path tracing. Sorry, path tracing, full ray tracing turned off as of now. And it's so confusing. I get confused between these two terms sometimes. And we have DLAA, which is DLSS anti-aliasing from DLSS. We are only using that. That means it is native 1440p resolution completely. And let's have a look. We are back in the jungle area. I really like how the game completely like straight up loads in the menu, and you can just press continue and it starts immediately. And it was the same in Dead Space remake, if I remember correctly. So now you can see those shadow flickering which I was talking about. I already showed you at 1080p, but at 1440p it looks much better. You can see them more clearly, all these issues this game has. And Even Alan Wake 2 from last year also had this shadow flickering issue in the jungle area of the game. I also showed that to you, and path tracing in that game totally fixes that issue, and it does the same on this one as well. And this looks quite good. The plant textures, they look decent, and it's quite a good looking game, I would say. Not the greatest in terms of visuals, but it's quite good, and the way it performs is quite good as well, unlike UE5 titles, which obviously look far better than this, but they stutter like crazy all the time. So we are getting like 108 FPS average, which is pretty good. And I think we were getting like 118 FPS average with these same settings with the previous driver 566.14 from Nvidia. And this driver kind of like loses some performance for this game, unfortunately. Maybe it's because on my PC only. I don't know if it's gonna happen for you all as well, but it is what it is. Now I'm gonna try this with Qlty DLSS quickly. Where is it? I wish the fonts appear a bit smaller in this game. So Qlty DLSS, which means it's gonna render at 960p, and it's gonna upscale it to 1440p resolution, and we won't get much from this because FPS is already very high, like above 100, and it doesn't really help much. Cutscenes are locked at 60. Let's refresh the counter. 120 FPS. So if you have a 120 FPS, 120 refresh rate monitor, this should work fine. It is dropping here and there, but as I said, in the city areas or town areas, you will obviously get higher FPS, probably around 140 even. And VRAM is 11.6 almost. Now I'm gonna disable Qlty DLSS, make it back to DLAA. There's no point of using Qlty DLSS. I'm gonna only try frame generation with this. Let's see how much boost we can get to the frame rate without losing any quality of the image with the help of frame generation. And input latency is obviously absolutely there is a nil because we were getting like 100 FPS, and now we're getting the same FPS, a little bit higher with what we were getting before with Qlty DLSS. So yeah, this is quite nice. You can enable DLSS frame generation on top of this native resolution, and it should be perfectly fine. You don't lose any image quality as well with the frame generation, and there's no input delay absolutely either. And now we're gonna test the actual thing, that is path tracing, with everything else set to maximum or supreme preset. And we're gonna use path tracing at medium, which only turns on shun shadows, ray trace shun shadows. Other two settings are disabled for now. We are using DLAA, and I'm gonna turn off frame generation for now. And we're gonna stick to this jungle area for a while, and I will only go to the museum when using RT reflections to show you the reflections again. And as you can see, we are sticking around 60 FPS. It is dropping like, wow, when I look towards the jungle, we are dropping like to 50. That is unfortunately not good. So yeah, I think without any upscaling with path tracing, it won't be possible to play this game with 60 FPS all the time. And obviously still we haven't enabled full path tracing or full ray tracing. It's just medium sun shadows. And I think with only sun shadows turned on, it makes the game a lot more enjoyable because of all the shadows, which gets fixed when you use the RT sun shadows. There's no shadow flickering, no shadow pop-ins. All of those issues get fixed when you turn on these settings from path tracing. I think that was a major issue, obviously, in this game, the shadows. And if you don't use RT reflections and RT direct illumination, those settings take a massive hit on your performance, and you don't get to see much of those things in this game. So I think you can safely ignore those two probably and just enable RT sun shadows. Let's go ahead, and now I'm gonna enable Qlty DLSS on top of this, and which means it's gonna render at 960p and upscale it back to 1440p resolution. And now we are getting 70 FPS, 80 when looking towards this area. Is very demanding when you look towards there. 70, probably gonna drop, yeah, 69 there, 68. But yeah, this is still playable. I think for 1440p, I think I might recommend you these settings to play on. And we might also test this with frame generation on DLAA as well, see if the input delay is anything close to tolerable or not. But this is also a good setting, I think. I'm gonna quickly switch this back to DLAA, and we're gonna use DLSS frame generation on top of native resolution with path tracing set to medium. And as you can see, we're getting 80 FPS and 90 sometimes. Yeah, the input delay is obviously noticeable now. And I don't think I will recommend you to use these because it's a FPS game, first person game, not FPS, my bad. Maybe you can call it a FPS. Yeah, it has guns, so yeah, FPS is fine. So yeah, it is quite noticeable when the frame rate drops to around 80, 90s is still tolerable. And now we're going to turn this up a notch with the path tracing settings. We're going to set it to high, which means both RT sun shadows and reflections are going to be turned on. And we are setting it to DLAA, which is basically upscaling or anti-aliasing from DLSS upscaler, I mean. And FG is turned off for now. We will try that afterwards. Let's have a look. 40 FPS in this jungle, and since we are in the jungle, you won't really see that much of a difference in terms of visuals with the reflections. There's not much reflections happening here, so I'll have to head back into the museum area or the Marshall College, I think that's what it is called. And looking at this side, we are dropping to 39. Let's go back a bit, and 38. So yeah, it's quite intense. I strongly do not recommend you use these settings without any upscaler or frame generation. 30 FPS is gonna be a bit unplayable, not a nice experience. And look at the frame time, it's pretty smooth though. That's what I like about it, like about this game. It's very smooth and optimized in terms of stuttering and all that stuff. VRAM is at 15 gigs as well. Let me load the save from the museum. So yeah, look at those reflections now. We're in the museum area, and I just kept this saved just to show you these reflections. But yeah, that's the thing. These kinds of reflections you won't really come across in this game that much, I am guessing, because most of the time we will be spending our time outside exploring in this game. That's what I assume it's all about. And we will be exploring caves and all that stuff where I don't think we will see that much of a reflections. But yeah, it's a setting which does make a visual difference in many scenes. And we are getting 60 plus FPS with native 1440p because we are in the interiors. As you have seen in the outside, we dropped to like 40s.
Let's tidy up.
And maybe it will go a bit, little bit, stay a bit higher in the Vatican City area, like maybe about 50s. I'm gonna quickly turn on DLSS quality on top of this and check that out as well. And we're getting 100 FPS, 100 plus.
See what was stolen.
And yeah, there is some ghosting on those, what should I call these, frames on the windows. Yeah, when I move back and forth or left and right, there is a lot of ghosting for quality DLSS.
Wasn't what I expected when you asked me.
And let's check these. Yeah,
don't usually make appointments.
even these ones have the same ghosting.
I thought you'd given up on the fertility idol, Indiana.
People die
But
for
yeah,
nothing.
other than that, it looks quite good. I'm gonna go back to the jungle with these settings and check that out as well. So we're back in the jungle now. We're getting 60 plus FPS, as you can see. And I think maybe with these settings, it's still quite playable because we are probably gonna stick above 50 FPS most of the time with quality DLSS. And VRAM, as you can see, 14.5 gigs. So moving on, I'm also gonna try this with frame generation turned on top of quality DLSS. And now we're getting 96 FPS. Wish we could reach above 100, but we can't. Which means we can notice the input delay, especially when I'm looking here. When it drops below like 90 FPS, it becomes quite noticeable. But over on this side, it is not that noticeable. It's pretty good. This one is acceptable, but on this side, it's not. So I don't think I will recommend you play with frame generation and DLSS quality because of the input delay. But at the end of the day, it's personal choice, the input delay, whether you can bear it or not. But I can't really bear this input delay of 85 FPS when we're getting like 80 FPS. But this one I can still bear. It's close to 100, and above 100 it's never an issue with this game. And frame generation implementation is also quite good in this game. And now the real deal, guys. We're gonna use supreme graphics quality settings. We're gonna max out path tracing, which is full RT, which is gonna turn on indirect illumination as well. And I'm gonna make this DLAA. We're gonna turn off frame generation. My goodness, it's already so laggy in the menu. Oh no. We're getting 34, 33. This is gonna be a like a movie experience now. 30 FPS. At least it's able to get that 30 FPS at native 1440p. I can't wait to see what will happen at like 4K. But yeah, the lighting looks so good now. When you turn on indirect lighting, all the lighting from the sun are gonna bounce off while the plants and trees. It looks so much more natural lighting in this. Can we go that side? We can't actually go. Okay, no problem. I wanted to explore the jungle a bit more, but this looks quite good. 30 FPS, I think, is a little bit too much on the downside. Maybe with 40 FPS would have been nice. We could have used quality DLSS to increase that and make it close to 60. So I'm gonna try this with DLSS set to quality now and see how much we can get in the city area. Yep, 60 plus FPS. Look at that frame time graph. This is the thing I'm talking about. This issue, it only happens with this driver version, the 566.36. It didn't really happen with the 566.14. It was working much better with that driver. But yeah, in the city area, you can get 60 plus FPS. Will probably drop down here and there sometimes below 60, but average you will stay above 60 all the time. And look at the GPU usage, like dropping below. What is going on? Yeah, it's like stuttering constantly for some reason. So I recommend you try the previous driver 566.14 if you're having this issue with the game, this constant frame spikes and GPU usage is dropping as well. It doesn't happen in all settings and in all resolutions. So I'm back in the jungle area, guys, just to show you with quality DLSS. We are getting like 50 FPS with all the path tracing turned on, which is full ray tracing. And with quality DLSS, there is some noticeable like more noise in the like plants and trees and some bit of ghosting when walking around. But this is quite playable, I would say. You can get away with this, but I won't be using quality DLSS. I mean, DLSS frame generation on top of quality DLSS because we cannot even get 60 FPS. And as I have told you, if you can't get like 90 FPS or at least something around those lines, the input delay is pretty bad and pretty noticeable in this game. Another thing I'm going to test with the DLSS, that is, I'm going to set this to like performance DLSS, and let's have a look now. And yeah, with performance DLSS, we can stay above 60 FPS all the time. But it is, I mean, it kind of looks on par at with 1080p. We are like rendering at 720p and upscaling it to 1440p. At this point, it looks the same as 1080p resolution. So I don't really think I would recommend you these settings. Just stick to 1080p and it should be fine with, you can use all the path tracing all you want at 1080p and it will be a playable experience. It's very noisy now, the water, all the like those I mean, it looks so awful there right now, that area. Let me quickly turn this DLAA, see if that fixes that issue. Yeah, that looks so much better now. The level of detail is so bad in this game, but obviously it makes sense. We are using performance DLSS. So now it's time for the show, that is 4K with the GPU in this game, but not the main show yet. First of all, I'm only gonna try this with supreme graphics quality. I won't use any path tracing right now. And one thing I forgot to tell you guys, that when you have path tracing set to off, the game by default only uses ray traced global illumination, even if it's set to off. So there is some bit of ray tracing there, even when it's turned off. And we're gonna stick with DLAA. We lose like 2 FPS from switching from TAA to DLAA. We are in the jungle right now, and not a bad experience, like 68, 67 FPS. Sometimes it's gonna go above 70s as well. 62, this is the most demanding area so far we have found out. And the shadows are still flickering, and it's very noisy. This shadow especially, it's very noisy. And look at the LOD on that tree. It's particularly these tree, and there are some more, even that shadow disappearing from the tree and reappearing. And even path tracing won't fix that. I have already seen that. And other than that, it looks quite good. 4K. And we're getting like 60 FPS average, and obviously in the city areas you will get a bit higher FPS, probably above 70s. So nothing too crazy here. You can easily play like this with maxed out graphic settings without any path tracing involved. And now in case you want a bit higher FPS, we can obviously use our DLSS quality upscaling, which is going to render at 1440p and upscale it back up to 4K. And now we're close to 90 FPS, and image quality, I don't see any difference from 4K, native 4K to quality DLSS. This looks absolutely fine. And if you want a bit higher FPS, just to stay safe, like always above 60 FPS, like I personally don't like sticking or hovering around like 60 FPS, even if it's above 60 all the time. I generally prefer like 70 FPS in games, like demanding games like these, where I can max out, but at least I try to achieve that 70 FPS, so I have that 10 FPS of like, what should I say, like gap in case it drops like massively in some areas, just for the smoothness, you know. So over here we're getting close to 90 FPS, 90 FPS average, almost 88. So quite good now. There is no difference from quality, I mean DLAA and quality DLSS, guys. And since we are getting like 60 FPS without quality DLSS, so I'm gonna switch it back to DLAA and turn on frame generation as well. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, we are close to 90 FPS. It is dropping to 80. Yeah, now the input delay becomes a bit noticeable now. I wish it was above 90, the FPS, then it wouldn't be that noticeable. And it would be bearable, at least for me. So yeah, in a FPS game, I don't recommend this. Maybe for a third-person game, this won't be an issue. And I hope they really add a third-person mode to this game in the future. Would be nice. So I'm going to quickly turn DLSS back to quality because of the input delay we are having at DLAA. Now we're getting 100 plus FPS, and the input delay is absolutely negligible. Like, it is there, but it's negligible now. And as long as it is above 90, it's pretty negligible for me personally, I'm saying. And the 1% lows, the 0.1% are very good. So no problem. You can use these settings to get high FPS. And now guys, it's finally time for the main show, which is gonna be path tracing at 4K maxed out settings. So first of all, let's try this with ray trace sun shadows only. And we're gonna use TAA this time, not DLA, because we need all the FPS we can get or squeeze out at this resolution. Frame generation is turned off for now. I don't think we can even try frame generation because of the input delay. And look at that, 29, 30, barely hitting 30, 24. That is a cinematic experience right there for you. So now it's obviously unplayable. VRAM is maxed out. completely because of frame generation. No, we are not using frame gen. We are at DLAA, my bad. So yeah, it's unplayable at this point. What that means is we have to use some quality DLSS, maybe not quality. Let's switch it back to DLSS and we're gonna use performance DLSS. So yeah, with performance DLSS, we can get 60 plus FPS. And this is now playable. This is quite playable. And the reason why I strongly recommend if you're going to play at 4K with the GPU is make sure you use the sun shadows, the RT sun shadows at least. Like, don't use the ray traced reflections and indirect illumination. It's going to kill your. I mean, it will become unplayable. We'll try that in a moment. But the reason I'm saying because of all the shadow pop-ins and flickering, which I showed you earlier in the video, it gets rid of all of those things, the artisan shadows. And if you don't enable it, it's gonna be very visually, like, it kills all the immersion, all those pop-ins. You know what I mean. But yeah, with performance DLSS, it's quite a good experience with this. I'm also gonna try frame generation on top of this with performance DLSS. Okay, it breaks our game because of the VRAM capacity. It's basically running out of VRAM and it is unplayable now. And obviously the input delay, we get nothing out of that. It's because of the VRAM, it's not working. And now we're gonna try with high path tracing, sun shadows, and RT reflections both turned on, and DLSS. I'm gonna keep it to performance. There's no point of trying native and quality or any other settings. Can't get 60 FPS unfortunately. Obviously, we're getting like around 60 with the RT sun shadows only turned on. But yeah, as I was saying, like, don't use reflections and indirect illumination. It makes no sense, guys, to lose so much of performance, and it's not gonna be a smooth experience. VRAM is close to being maxing out. It's not maxed yet. This is playable if you want to, but we won't try frame generation because we can't even get 60 FPS. It's not going to be a nice experience, and obviously we don't have the VRAM to utilize frame generation. It's going to stutter as I showed you earlier just now. And now, guys, with full ray tracing turned on at 4K resolution with DLSS set to performance, I mean, it looks quite good though. We are rendering at 1080p, upscaling at 4K. This looks like very similar to 1440p. And we are probably getting a bit higher FPS than we were at 1440p with these similar settings, I'm guessing. But we are dropping to like 39 there. Looks quite good, I won't lie, with direct lighting. I think the reflections is the most useless setting. You can use both the RT direct illumination and the sun shadow if you want, but I personally would stick with only sun shadows. That's what mostly matters to me for this. I don't want to kill all the performance of this game. But yeah, this looks quite good. I'm also gonna try this with ultra performance just in case many of you ask at times. So let's do that. Why not? It's just a switch. And now we can get to that 60 FPS. Sometimes it's gonna touch that here and there. And it's quite smooth now. But now it becomes very noisy and there's a lot of ghosting, especially on the branches. Look at those ghosting, shimmeriness, and all that stuff is gonna happen. So don't use ultra performance. 720p is gonna render and upscale it to 4K. Not worth it. And finally, guys, just as I said, if you only want to use RT sun shadows and direct illumination, I turned only these two on. That's why it says custom. We're gonna use DLSS set to performance. And now we are getting like close to that 60 FPS mark once again. Not close yet, but it's above 50. This is playable, quite playable, I would say. And obviously we're gonna get more FPS in the city town area. And I'm just showing this if you want to use those two only. So that will be it for this video, guys. Do leave a like if you enjoyed and if this video helped you, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And as always, I will catch you on the next one. Till then, take care and bye bye.